couldn't say the word subscribe.
They knew what you meant. Welcome to this week's episode of The Follow-Up, where we recap this week's sermons to help you grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. I'm here with Pastor Adam and Pastor Bill. Welcome, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Okay, who's going to have the honor of recapping our sermon in 60 seconds or less?
I did terrible last time, so Bill, I'm going to...
Oh, okay, I get to do it. Okay, that sounds fun.
Okay, Bill, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so we talked about Jesus as king. And so we looked at Jesus as the anticipated king. We looked at Jesus as the eternal king. We looked at Jesus as the
Conquering king.
Conquering king, yes. And we looked at Jesus as the King of Kings. And then as we went through all of those, we kind of set it up so that the end of it would be, if those things are all true, then King Jesus deserves our allegiance.
Wow. Clearly, that was less than 60 seconds.
That was. I mean, because we only have 60 seconds, so I couldn't go into depth in the points. But those really were the points.
And you're like, if I could just rattle off my points, then I know I will get it under 60 seconds.
Exactly. Yep. That's what you have to get. I mean, you can't just start into the points because then you can't get to the other points,
Yeah, we've learned that through past episodes.
Exactly.
Okay, so as you guys were prepping for this sermon, you guys did it together, which is always fun.
Yeah.
What were some things that you wish you would have been able to talk about, but because of time, you just weren't able to?
Well, I just listened to yours, Bill, and I really appreciated how you did a build-up more in the Old Testament. I mean, we had the shared outline, so we had some similar verses, but I really liked how you did the build-up, even beginning in Judges.
Yeah.
And going back to how everyone did what was right in their own eyes and because they lacked a king. And you went into the history component a little more than I did. And I really appreciated that. I invested a lot of time in some of the other things and already went way over time. So if I were to go back and look at some things that I wish I would have inserted in there more, I would have had that. But I would say, hey, there's 2 messages available now online. If you heard Downtowns, make sure you listen to Bill's in Bellevue for this last weekend as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I haven't listened to yours yet, but I'm really excited to. But I think one of my things would be, I didn't get a chance to really talk about how Jesus fulfills all of the prophecies specifically about him being the king. The coming king, but he does. And like one of them is surrounding, I would have loved to go more in depth around him even coming into Jerusalem on a donkey and how that fulfills that like imagery of being the king that Israel was expecting. And like the timing of it and all of those pieces, and even what the people were saying as he's coming into Jerusalem, that whole picture is him coming as the king.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, even the very concept of Jesus being king, I think we have to bridge some gaps for us because in our mindset as Americans, it kind of seems more like fantasy land. We think about that as when it comes to fictional tales that we've been told or even bygone days, and the fact that this is a reality that Jesus is the king right now, and he is reigning, and he has established his kingdom, and his kingdom is spreading throughout the world. There's a bridge that we have to gap in our thinking as far as this is true and this is the reality, and we need to submit to his leading. And that's so important for us to acknowledge, not only to understand in our thinking, but then also, okay, how does that impact our response? And I think both of us kind of went there in the message as well, as far as Jesus owes our allegiance, that we owe our allegiance to him. And so, yeah, so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you kind of alluded to it right now of both of your actionable points in your guys' message was alluding to the fact of who's on the throne. Who are you allowing to be the leader of your life? Is it you, or are you allowing King Jesus to really take his rightful place? So as we are looking at wrapping up even the sermon series, but even for this week's sermon, how do you see that practically playing out in people's lives?
Yeah, I would just say that I actually ran across an article that was talking about, like, if Jesus is king, that we should let him mess with our lives or turn our lives upside down. And I was like, that's a really interesting concept. And they kind of use this analogy of like, your life that you're building on your own is like a sandcastle. and you build up this sandcastle, and you're like, look I'm king of this sandcastle. And like when you come to Jesus, Jesus is like stomping on your sandcastle, and not in a bad way, but in a way that like, hey, you have to give up your silly sandcastle in order to actually follow me in my kingdom. And so like the question is like, are we willing to let Jesus stomp on our sandcastle? You know, like, are we willing to actually say like, actually Jesus, I'm not just adding you on to my life, but you can like do whatever you want, right? Like the Bible would talk about us being slaves of Christ. And like, do we have that mentality where like, Jesus's priorities get to supersede ours? Like we get to give up who we are in order to follow King Jesus. And I think that's the piece that I'm challenged with personally, but I would challenge other people with. It's like, what areas of your life have you built your sandcastle and you say, don't touch it, Jesus? Right. What have you held back from King Jesus?
Right. Yeah, I think similarly, for me, when we think about the reign of Jesus, oftentimes we think about the future, you know, when all is made new and evil is done away with, and we look forward with anticipation to that. And yet the reality of, well, Jesus reigns now, and how is that demonstrated in my life? How do I look to Jesus as reigning in my life right now with the choices that I make? How are they submitted to him? And what am I not doing because Jesus is on the throne? And what am I doing because Jesus is on the throne? And so how does it look that I am serving under his kingship? So, yeah, just some practical things, you know, right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys for joining us today for this week's episode of The Follow-Up. We will see you guys in the next one.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. If this content was helpful for you, please give us a like.
Also, if you have been enjoying this content, one way you can make sure that you don't miss it is by subscribing to our channel by hitting the bell icon.
And finally, if you don't have a Christmas Eve service to attend, we'd love to have you join us at 1:30 p.m. right here on YouTube, as well as Christmas Day service happening at 9 a.m. on Sunday, again, right here on YouTube. And Merry Christmas.
Hey, thank you for watching this video. If this content was helpful for you, please give us a like below.
Also, we wanted to say that if you are enjoying our content, a great way to make sure you get all of our content is to subscribe to our channel by hitting the bell button.